Hey, what's going on? What a way to start, right? I immediately, right out the gate, I start choking. So, welcome everybody. It's funny because every time I go live, I always have to remember which buttons to push, how did I set this up, all of that kind of stuff. So, I already see some people. Alpha Kilo Warrior, I'm always early. Absolutely. Jay Styles, Edward Molino. What's going on, everybody? It's good to see everybody on here. Terrence Southern. Listen, everybody, wish Terrence Southern a big congratulations. He just accomplished what I've been trying to do over the last month or so. He is now, I believe, if I remember this correctly, an instrument rated pilot. And so that is awesome. And because of what I'm doing and I'm currently in the training, I know how big a deal that is. So congratulations, brother. That is awesome. Twin Flyer, hey, how you doing? K Daddy, what's up, man? How you doing? So listen, this is going to be a fun, yes, sir. Cloud Surfer official. Thank you, bro. You're welcome, man. That is awesome. And so here's what I will say. If you are a private pilot and you have a private pilot's license, I implore you to get your instrument rating. And I'm going to tell you, there's a flight that I took yesterday that it seems like every time I go somewhere and I'm thinking, the weather may be a little iffy, but it won't be until later on. Yeah, it happened again. And this happened the first time with the flight that I did with brother Alpha Kilo Warrior. We got the smash burgers, awesome smash burgers. And in fact, Alpha Kilo Warrior, make sure you leave in the comments that place that we went to. I can't remember the name of it, but if you are a pilot and you're anywhere in the, New England, tri-state area, um, you definitely have to check out that restaurant with the smash burgers and all of that. They're really, really great people. The food was outstanding. Yeah, Air in Townton. Yeah, Air restaurant, absolutely, absolutely amazing. But if you remember, I flew up, picked Alpha Kilo Warrior up. We flew and had lunch and all this kind of stuff. On the way back, I had to divert to Tweed, New Haven, and the skies just opened up, and I stayed overnight. Well, it's interesting because I flew into Syracuse airport yesterday. There was a cookout that I was going to go to, and it's interesting. This time, my wife was like, hey, listen, I'm starting to see some clouds building up back here. And so I just wanted to make you aware of that. And as soon as she sent me that text, and she's never done that before, and since I am fresh off of, that whole experience with Alpha Killer Warrior, I just thought, you know what, let me get back in the airplane and get the heck out of here. And once again, I'm in the air. I'm on my way home, and I'm at 7,500 feet because I was flying over top of some stuff. And then all of a sudden, all I saw was a wall. I mean, it was just like a wall of just like grays and that gray and a little bit of black and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I'm getting ready to fly into a bomb. And so I descended down to from 75. I called up approach because I was flying over some airspaces, and they gave me flight following, and I'm like, I'm going down to 3-5, and they're like, yeah, you probably need to do that, especially if you're going to try to stay VFR. And at one point, what was really interesting is that I still had some contact with the ground. Visibility was probably 4 miles at best, and there was light rain. And what was really interesting is the light rain was kind of obscuring my view straight forward because the drops were so small. They weren't just like running up the windscreen, they were kind of just like hanging out in front of my face. Now, I was still able to see out of my peripheral vision to keep contact with the ground, but it was crazy. And this is what I will say: the fledgling skills that I've gotten so far in my instrument training really did kick in because one, I didn't panic. I still had contact with the ground, and I have a decent autopilot. So I engaged that to make sure I stayed wings level, that I could maneuver and, look for places to go if I needed to deviate left or right. I had ATC in my back pocket. And I knew how to put up an approach back to Doylestown. And, I did all of that. And, the beauty of it is I understood what was happening. I flew the approach, all of that kind of stuff. And fortunately, I was still within VFR flight rules, but it was diminishing pretty quickly. And there was only one person in the pattern at Doylestown when I got there, and they were getting ready to do their last lap. So as I was on my 10-mile final on the RNAV GPS for runway 5, listen to me like I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I call her Carol. Carol's my autopilot. Since I didn't want to screw anything up, I let Carol fly the course reversal. She got me down, to minimums, and I landed, and it was great. The only reason why I even knew to do that is because I've got about now 10 hours of instrument, flight time. And that really, really made a difference. So here's my plug. Even if you don't want to get your instrument rating, take some instrument rating flight lessons. I'm telling you, us general aviation pilots who have private pilot's license, and you have that measly 3 hours of instrument flying and upset recovery and all that kind of stuff, it's not enough. Get more training. Like I said, I understand that the training is costly. I get it. And certainly, it can be cost prohibitive, but every now and then, if you can just grab an hour or two just to kind of understand some concept or bone up on some things, I mean, you'll put yourself in good stead. I mean, there's just too many of us as VFR pilots that get ahead of our skis, and we're in a situation where, yeah, it's problematic. And this wasn't even a get there itis. I really thought that things were kind of clear, but unfortunately, in Pennsylvania, over the mountains, there's a couple places where systems just kind of seem to hang out, and you get sandwiched between the terrain coming up and the clouds coming down. It's just one of those typical things. So that's my plug. All right, let's say hi to some folks. So let's see. Let me see. We got John Freed. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. Nice to see brother John, of course. Edward Merlina, you need a windsock in stop. Windsock in stop at BDR. Great food. Yeah, definitely want to check that out. Trust your instruments and Carol, definitely. Joe Pilot. Hey Russ, happy Sunday. Incredible flying indeed. Remember your trainer. Remember your training. Needle, ball, airspeed, fly safe. Absolutely, brother. Um, Oki Arrow. Hey, how you doing, Oki? Nice to see you. So that's definitely looming large on my radar screen. Now, here's one thing that I wanted to mention in terms of one of the developments that is happening. So you all know that I've been training with Vanessa, and she is an absolutely amazing flight instructor. And I've really enjoyed my time with her. She's really taught me a lot. And the fact that I was able to deal with what happened yesterday, because but for her training, I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have diverted again and landed. And the thing is, at Doylestown now, ceilings are 600. So I would be there until Monday, which would have kind of sucked, but dying sucks even more. So, especially in a fiery plane crash after, getting inverted and all of that kind of stuff. So, since it was still, I think the ceilings were about 4,000 feet. And, I was able to navigate the terrain. And if it got really dicey, I knew I had the wing lever and Carol to, help me out. And HEC was willing to vector me around different stuff and all that kind of stuff. I felt safe, but that was only because, like I said, I've been spending this time with Vanessa doing some flight training. Adam, how you doing? Nice to see you, brother. So, but we're one of the things that happens with all flight instructors, including people who are very good and very good pilots. Sometimes things show up on the radar screen, and so one of the things that's beginning to show up on her radar screen is she is getting checked out in a Beechcraft King Air, and one of the things that Doylestown Legacy Aviation has is they have charter flights in these beautiful King Airs. And I've, profiled them and stuff like that on my Facebook. And speaking of which, follow me on Facebook, Russ Can Fly. I put a bunch of stuff over there, just kind of daily pictures and thoughts and, sometimes, things. So it's a way to get some more up to date, content. Russ Can Fly, Facebook. But I've profiled those King Airs on my Facebook page, and she's gonna be one of their pilots. And so what's happening is she's beginning to really, buckle down on some of the testing, and there's like all these different, tests she has to do and quizzes and all of this kind of stuff. And so her time is getting more and more limited. So at some point, you may see a change in flight instructor. And if you do, I don't want anybody to think that, there was anything that happened, other than a really good pilot is making progress in her own piloting journey. And so, I'll definitely be wishing her well. The change is not happening now, but it's definitely seemed clear to me that the last time that we had to cancel one of our training lessons, that it was because there just really was a lot going on with her. They wanted her to reposition the King Air. It was just a perfect opportunity for her to get her hands on the controls. And she asked me, she was definitely cool about it in terms of, hey, listen, I know this is last minute. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to cancel. She explained what was going on. And, that's just the nature of the nature of flight training. Unfortunately, I caught her at a time where, she's at that amount of hours where, she's able to engage this process. And, pretty much after she does all she needs to do in terms of the checkouts and the quizzes and tests and whatever one has to do to fly, a twin engine airplane of that variety, then she'll probably get hired to do some of their flights in the King Airs, as part of that fleet. So just wanted to give people a heads up, and because sometimes I remember the last time I was getting flight instruction when I was getting my private pilot's license. Um, it was, Kyle was there one day and then it was Manish the next day, and moms were like, what happened? And I didn't think about what that would look like, without, really thinking about, hey, people might be like, oh, what's going on? So with Vanessa, I wanted to make sure that I was sensitive to that. And, so I just wanted to kind of let you guys know that. But until such time, the training is going well. I can't wait for you to see this one video. It's in the making. I did my first ILS approach to Allentown Airport. Allentown is a Class Charlie airport, so of course you got to be on with approach and stuff. And this approach controller was not having it. I mean, dude was all over me. I mean, he was yelling and it was crazy. So that's gonna be pretty wild. But I'm beginning to at least somewhat connect the dots in terms of what I'm supposed to do when. I'm also getting better at briefing, not reading the whole daggone chart, but just briefing like what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do next, what are the step downs, what's the minimum, either minimum descent altitude or decision altitude, and what am I going to do if I go missed. So, all of those things are beginning to really come together. Um, but I definitely understand why they say the instrument rating is the hardest rating you'll ever get because it's just so different. You are completely inside the airplane. You're completely looking at the instruments. You have to, I think, according to the ACS standards, have your altitude plus or minus 100 um in altitude, and I think it's plus or minus 5 degrees, something like that. So the tolerances are pretty tight, and so you're really trying to focus on heading and altitude while interpreting all of these different instruments. Switching fuel tanks is what I have to do on Charlie. She has four, so that makes for an interesting time for sure. And just all of the different things in terms of communication. One of the calls that I am struggling with is, so just before you get cleared to the approach controller will say something like, okay, Charlie, 1541 Charlie, you are 3 miles west of the something something VOR. Turn right heading 150, set and maintain 3,000 feet until established. Clear RNAV GPS runway 5. I can say that and repeat it back while I'm sitting here on my behind, but for whatever reason, and they say it so fast, and so I can't remember. Okay, I know that I don't have to say anything about my position. I don't have to repeat that, but I do have to repeat the turn, the altitude, and the clearance. And by the time they get finished with everything that they've said, I have no idea what they said with the turn, or I may have caught the altitude. And you would think I would understand what approach I've been cleared to because I've pulled it up. But for whatever reason, my brain just completely shuts down. And there's been a couple times where I've just looked at Vanessa and been like, I got nothing. All I can do is fly this airplane now. So can you talk to this person? But at least I know the nomenclature in terms of PTAC, right? P, position, T, turn, A, altitude, and C, clearance. I understand that. So there's the intellectual pieces that are coming. I think it's just going to come with practice in terms of the radio communications and that kind of thing. So that's the latest and greatest on the whole instrument thing. You know what's happening, and it's been a ride. And I don't know about anything like my man Terrence Southern. I'm sure he would agree. Getting your instrument rating is tough, but it is well worth it. And one of the things that I'll say is right now, as I look at my fourth flight, I think it is not stormy. It's just gray. And let me see. It says few at 1,500, scattered at 2,300, and the ceiling is broken at 3,300. And Terrence Southern says absolutely. I think he kinky cosigns. And so this would be a great day to like do some instrument stuff because the wind is like nothing. I mean, it's like variable at 5 knots. Now it's gonna get really nasty, but this would be a great day to do some instrument stuff, or take an instrument flight somewhere. And I'm not able, I am just straight up grounded. And that's the thing that I will say, that not only does it make you safe, but it does open up some other, possibilities in terms of where you're able to fly, when you're able to fly, whatever. But it also helps you deal with, emergencies. You do find yourself, VFR into IMC. And, it's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine, and that happened to him. And he was able to just kind of like get himself together. Now he does a lot of sim stuff. I'm not really a fan of the sim, although I know it's cost effective and all that kind of stuff. It just, I like the feel of the airplane, and of course I like to be broke. Well, I really don't, but that's in essence what happens. You start burning all that avgas, right? But I was on a sim one time, and I just don't like it. Now, I will say that as I get closer to a check ride and I need to just kind of shore up some approaches and stuff like that, then the sim will be perfect for me for sure. But now I just need that feel of the yoke in my hand. Alpha Killer Warrior, it must be rewarding when you nail the approach and have good radio comms. I can only imagine what that's like. I mean, that must just feel, so good. And the thing about it is it's so orchestrated. So that's why it's just so safe. So, definitely amazing. So I'm looking at the comments, and one of the things that's kind of interesting is um I see it says top fans over here. So it looks like Mr. Southern is in first place. Alpha Amelia, Alpha Kilo Warrior, and K Daddy 5598. It's interesting. The stuff that kind of pops up on this YouTube stuff is kind of wild. So that's what's going on with the IFR. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is it's almost time to plan a second annual inspection. I mean, can you believe it? It's crazy. So my annual is due in October, and I just left a note with the head mechanic about getting on the schedule for a second annual. And last year, my annual went pretty smooth. All the costs associated with that annual and what that costs is definitely in the members section. So if you're interested in any of the numbers about what I paid for the airplane, what I paid for insurance, what I paid for in terms of my annual and maintenance and hangar and all that kind of stuff, definitely think about becoming a channel member. That way you can, have access to all of that kind of stuff. What I'm hoping is that this annual is around that amount or somewhere south of that. Um, because Charlie is really pretty solid. There's not much, that is, happening. I will say that I had my first little almost devastating oopsie. So, or two. One on a Archer, Dakota, whatever, there is the latch that you can lock and unlock the door before you like, pull the handle. Well, I noticed that the latch was sitting up at this weird angle, and it literally almost flew off. The screw had kind of backed out and the latch was about to come off. And I was like, thank you, Lord, for allowing me to see this. So pushed it down, and got the screwdriver and tightened that back up. But one day I was flying and I saw this little red thing fall into my lap. And I'm going to see if anybody knows. It was a little tiny, it looked like a tiny little dot, but it had a screw. It had a little screw on it. And I'm like, okay, this has come from somewhere. Somebody in the comments tell me what they think that little red dot with the screw is. I'm gonna see if somebody can figure it out because it took me a week. And once I realized what it was, what I had done, and what a disaster it could have been, it's a little tiny thing. All right, come on, comments. Let me see what we got. Little tiny red screw. I'm flying and it falls into my lap. What is it? And while I'm waiting, let's see. J Styles working on my instrument ground using Shep Air. Man, I'm having trouble focusing. Within 10 minutes, I'm ready to go to sleep. September will make a year and I will have to pay again. So I thought, Jay, that when you did Shep Air, that that once you had your username and password, that it didn't expire until you pass your test, and sometimes they would ask you whatever. But I thought you had more time than a year, so check that. But trust me, I understand where you're coming from. Put Schedule yourself. Schedule, okay, I'm going to work for half an hour and then get up. Then schedule yourself for the next hour. And then that way it won't feel like I've got to do all of this and you just get overwhelmed and you just get sleepy. Right. And so, because I would do the same thing. Literally, I'd be falling asleep while I was like on the thing. And I'm just like, why am I falling asleep? Well, it just felt so, daunting. So, what I started doing is just telling myself, okay, just do it for half an hour and then you're done and then you'll come back later. So give that a shot. See if that works. So Alpha Kilo Warrior says sun visor screw. That's exactly what I thought it was as well, brother Alex, but it was not. But you're kind of, at least you're, making that same kind of deduction. But all right, come on, who's gonna get it? Little red button falls into my lap, has a little screw on the end. I'll wait another couple minutes and see if anybody can get it. What do you think that was? Um, and so, in terms of the annual, oh, Mike Button, John Free, close. Oh, getting hot. Terrence Southern, trim screw, close, close. You're getting hot. You're there. Come on, you're almost there. Um, but at any rate, I'm hoping that my annual is going to be good. I've been trying to be more mindful of like touching screws and rivets and looking at stuff. And one of the things I also try to do is when I put fuel in the airplane, I try not to like lean the hose on the fuel port, so it's not like pulling it and denting it and all of that kind of stuff. Oh my gosh, Edward Molina. Ding, 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 ding. The autopilot disconnect button. So, congratulations, Edward. You got it, brother. So, here's what's crazy. So, on my yoke, I have the iPad mount, right? Where I put the iPad. And when I'm done, and I fly helicopters, that's crazy. I put my headset on the yoke. Well, there's only about this much space between the autopilot disconnect on the inside and the the iPad mount. And so when I put my headphones in, it rubs against the autopilot disconnect button. And so I think what was happening over time, it was just becoming more and more loose. And eventually it just came out, but it came out while I was flying. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, all right, well, just leave it there. Don't touch it. Just keep flying. Just leave it there, land, and then get it. So I pull this thing out and I'm looking around, and the screw is tiny. I'm like, the heck is this thing? So, of course, Alex, I'm looking at the visors, I'm looking at all this kind of stuff. And I am getting ready to take off, and I take off, and I'm like, do I want to do something with the autopilot? And just as I did that, I look down and I don't see the button. And I'm like, wait, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I would have been able to disconnect. I could have overridden it by like just manhandling or pushing the button, but I don't think I would have been able to use the autopilot disconnect button without the button. And so it was crazy. So as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh. So found the button, put it in, and we were good to go. So thank you, Edward. That's exactly what it was. Ronald Nesbitt, what's good, Russ? Your boy in Florida here. What's going on there, brother? Good to see you, brother Ron. Um, and we got NM. He had a license plate helipilot. Hell pilot. And that's right, I did. That's crazy. So anyway, yeah, so those are the types of things. There's something a little stiff with my um primer. Definitely going to have to take a look at that. And I have one of the sumps that, every now and then, I think it's just dirt. Maybe it just needs to be cleaned out because maybe the O ring is getting, but it'll leak, especially if, and it's on one of the tip tanks, it'll do like a drip, drip, whatever. Not a gusher, but definitely a little bit of a leak. So I'm going to have that looked at. And then definitely tires, if they last that long, but definitely tires. I mean, there's definitely, a number of landings that I put on those tires, and they're definitely saying, okay, it's time, brother. So those are the things that I can think of. And I'm looking at the ELT, of course, because that's every 12 months, right? And because of like the instrument stuff, I got to do, pedostatic, make sure that's up to date, and transponder check, so those types of things. Now, here's the other thing that I'm struggling with a little bit is I got to do VOR checks every 30 days. And I keep reading about how you can do it, and you can do it in the air and plus or minus 6 degrees or on the ground. But I'm like, I still don't get it. So I got to figure out how to do, that whole, VOR test, because that needs to be done every 30 days. And then where to put it in my logbook. So any ideas there, leave a comment down below, in the comments, and help a brother out, because that's still not clear to me, this whole VOR check thing. Thyreek, what's up, man? Good to see you. Thank you for joining the live. And AB82, what's going on? Hey, listen, AB82, got a story for you. So I'm sitting in the airplane with Vanessa, my CFI, and it is hot. And she looks over and she says, open that thing, please. And the thing that she was talking about was, I'm sure you can guess what it is, that beautiful piece of equipment known as the low technical uh air conditioning. And I'll let you say in the comments what it is. And I will say that AB82, just gifted me this. Yep, the scoop. And that scoop was like a lifesaver. I mean, it was so hot. I mean, of course, we had the door open and stuff, but the scoop, the way the wind was blowing, I mean, it just helped tremendously. So, just want to let you know and thank you once again. And I know I thanked you before, but I'll thank you again just for hooking the brother up with that scoop. At first, when I put it on there, I really didn't get, because I didn't have any training aircraft that had one of those things. I had seen them, but I was just like, that looks bogus. Like, how much can that really help? That little scoop in that little tiny window. Man, when I put that thing on there, I found out real quickly, it's just amazing how much comfort. He said that thing blows like a leaf blower type. It really does. It's pretty incredible. So thank you once again for that scoop. So at any rate, so that's what's on the radar screen. Getting ready for annual once again, and I can't believe it that I'm in solidly in year 2 of my airplane ownership journey. And one of the things that I will say about owning Charlie is it definitely just does not make any financial sense. I mean, every time I look at, like, one of my friends has a Mooney, he's been working on it. and he had to get the pucks changed and all of that kind of stuff. And it looked like a nightmare. And the cost of like these little rubber, because it's a Mooney M20 of some variety, and these little rubber pucks in between these like metal discs. And I think each cassette, well, they're separate, but I think they came in a group of three, like $400 or something like that. I was just like, oh my, and that's just for hard rubber discs between two metal plates. And it goes on the landing gear of an airplane. I mean, that's just nuts. So, but I will say that um, maybe this is the same way people feel about their RVs or boats or things that you really don't need in a practical sense, right? It's not a need. It's not like shelter, like your house, or maybe even a car, transportation, because that gets you to your job and to medical appointments and all that kind of stuff. Airplane, definitely not a need at all, unless it's a business. And even then, I don't know. But yeah, it's been crazy from a financial standpoint. But man, yesterday, like I said, there was this cookout at Syracuse University, which is one of my alma maters. And from where I live to Syracuse University, it's straight northern shot. But it would have taken 5.5 hours to get there. In lieu of that, I went to my airplane and flew an hour and a half and landed at Syracuse and, went to the cookout and was back by dinner time. And so it's just this like magic carpet. You know what I mean? It costs a lot of money. Let me see. TNYH21. How many hours do you have? So I think I have somewhere in the neighborhood of 440 hours, give or take. And I think I just crossed the 10-hour threshold with Vanessa of instrument training time. Now I have additional hours. I think I have 17 total with an instructor, but three of those, or 3.5, was when I got my license. I think I did that training back in 2019. And I did trainings with another instructor, did about an hour or two, but that, even though I put it in the logbook as like total time for IFR, I'm really only counting the hours or the time that I'm doing with Vanessa as part of my instrument flight training time. And so that's about 10 hours. So, yeah, so total about 440, give or take some hours. And yeah, about 10 hours. Dang, get it, man. Been watching for a while. Yeah, like yesterday I flew about 3.9 hours. And that's just because I had access and was able to go somewhere. So, and like you've seen when I flew to pick up Alex, or I've gone to, and I can't wait to show you guys because um, Alex had done this flight to Montauk, and I was like, that looks beautiful. So a lot of times I like low key stalk Alex, wherever Alex flies, Russ wants to fly. And so I did this great flight to Montauk, still trying to, get all of the footage and stuff together. But I also did this wild flight to Nantucket. Um, that was a wild flight. I mean, Nantucket hits different. I'm gonna just tell you that right now. It was just different, and I won't get into too much of it until I like actually, upload the video and stuff like that. So I've been doing some interesting flights. And certainly while we're live here, if there's any questions about what's happening and that kind of thing, put something over in the comments. Let me see. CL Driver, hey Russ, good to see you. Good to see you too. Montauk is awesome. So many deer. Yeah, so I don't know if you remember Alex, but when you taxi, the guy actually at the airport at that point said, right now when you're leaving, it's not a good idea for you to taxi on the taxiway. He was like, because those trees in between that little lane to go down, he was like, taxi on the runway. Don't taxi back there right now. So there's times where it's like so many deer that they basically tell you not to taxi on the taxiway. It was crazy. But Montauk, New York, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And for all my pilots out there, check out Alex's, Montauk video. Beautiful. And then definitely take that flight yourself. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. And I will say that flying into Nantucket was fun. Fair warning, there are a lot of very well heeled, moneyed individuals flying into that place with these private jets, and the tower will make you go around and around and around and around and around so that you get out of the way of these people in these private jets. I'm just saying. Also, the how they do like the landing and all that kind of stuff. I think they like almost forced my hand in terms of like waiting for somebody to come get me in a golf cart. It's like I'm able bodied. So Nantucket is just different, but beautiful little island and stuff. Stuff is expensive, it's Nantucket is everything you would think about Nantucket. That's all I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna leave it there because man, it was crazy. But Montauk, I think Montauk was top five for sure. Um, I would say of course, Martha's Vineyard, fantastic fly-in. Martha's Vineyard is hard to navigate in terms of once you want to go off the airport, because you can get like an Uber, you can rent a car. There's even like a bus and stuff, but it's just where that airport is. It's kind of away from like Oak Bluffs, where the town is. So beautiful, but definitely, I mean, it's within the top five. And plus, I just like Martha's Vineyard. Block Island, lights out. That's my favorite. I mean, just everything about it. And if you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out. Block Island is just amazing. You can land at the airport, you can walk into town, you can rent scooters, there's restaurants. The physical plan of the island is just gorgeous. I'm going back to Block Island. Block Island is amazing. And Montauk. Montauk is one of those places where it just still has the feel of fishing village. Like, we are fishermen, and I expected people to come out with like ale and barrels and stuff like that, muskets. I mean, gorgeous, but definitely has that old school, you know, what you would think of like what these places were like back in the day. It hasn't lost that character, and I love it. Let's see. Thanks, bro. You're welcome, brother Alex, Terrence. I wish I could fly on the East Coast, just desert and mountains out here in Phoenix. Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like, brother Terrence. But I'm hoping next summer to get out there to you so we can do some flying and you can kind of show me your instrument skills because I'll be just trying to figure it out still. Um, Edward, Block Island, and your scooter. Oh, I'm telling you, man, it was just like I felt like I was on like a serious, holiday, like vacation. And it's just, and everybody's just kind of chill. I got that at Martha's Vineyard too. People are pretty chill. Martha's Vineyard is very busy. This was kind of busy, but definitely relax. I mean, if you get a chance, you're a pilot, go to Block Island. Just make it happen, period. AB82, wait till you experience flying at a military base. Huh. I deal with F-16s and C-5s, and tower keeps on hold to squeeze you into the cycle. I can only imagine what that's like. And it's funny, I've never thought about going into a military base McGuire, somebody said something about like, yeah, you can, something about, I can't remember, get this right, AB82, but something about they will they will kind of help you, but they won't let you land there or whatever, like long as your wheels don't touch, but they have no problem like then you do a low approach or something like that. I forget what that is, because a lot of times they're just, if the military aircraft aren't flying, they're just sitting there. So and yeah, I loved your Block Island trip too. Yeah. K Daddy, what did you do it in? I actually did it in my airplane in a pilot Piper Cherokee 235. And I do have flotation devices that I had with me, because I did, going into Martha's Vineyard and Block Island, you're flying over some water for sure. But yeah, I did it in my airplane, and it was great. K Daddy, what did you do while in Montauk? So I I went to this awesome restaurant. I mean, I can't wait to I'm gonna start putting that video together. So that video will probably come out in September or maybe end of August. I don't know. Because I have these things scheduled. But I went on, down to this fishing village. I went to this restaurant that was like lights out. I had a lobster, not to be confused with lobster, but a lobster roll that was incredible. Just walked around the village, went to this beach that was like crazy because it was right off. You'll have to remind me, if Alex, but if it was like off the departure end of the runway is like you walk over and there's like the beach. And a lot of times what people do, and the airport hates when pilots do this, but people will land their airplanes, pull the airplane over, and then walk back down the runway to the beach. So it's wild. It's wild. So those are just a few of the things, and I can't remember, but certainly I will show you some more of the things that I did in Montauk. K Daddy, I will say it's awesome. Just very nice, normal, blue collar, solid, great, beautiful place, without having to put on airs like Nantucket. I'm just saying, not trying to diss Nantucket, but I'm just saying Nantucket was a completely different animal. So let's see. East Penn Tailwheel. McGuire Air Force Base will let you do an ASR or PAR approach if you call them first. Oh, okay. I knew there was something that you could do, but I wasn't exactly sure, what it was. And then Alpha Killer Warrior, Gun Beach, Gin Beach, yeah. Alton Bay, as in New Hampshire. Haven't done that yet. Gonna, see, what's up with that. Or maybe I did. I can't remember. Aviation shorts. Yo, Russ, when do I get to fly with you? I have a 140. Oh, let's do that. Let's do that. Now, see, here's one of the things that I will say. I love the small airplanes. There is an airplane that's like Little Sammy that's actually for sale. And somebody called me and said, hey, listen, I got this 152 that I need to get rid of. And this guy is just freaking loaded, but friend of his is like, he's got this 152 G1000s. I mean, all these kinds of stuff. And man, I tell you, I kind of salivate. And I don't know what it is. I was always one of those people like I owned a Volkswagen Bug. I had a Fiat. I don't know if you know Fiat four-door sedan. I think it was like I think it was called a 174 or something like that. I had a Toyota Tercel, new off the showroom floor, like car about this big, stick shift. Just something about like small vehicles have always just spoke to me. I always wanted a Volkswagen Rabbit though. That's what I wanted the most, but could never get my hands on one of those. But that 140, yeah, definitely I'd love to get into that. That would be awesome. Nathan, How many hours under the hood so far? Are you becoming accustomed to flying by instruments only? Good question, Nathan. So right now, I have the hours that I'm counting under the hood 10. Um, I have a total of 17, but three of those I totally don't count because that was back in 2019 when I was doing the private pilot training stuff. I can't remember any of that. And then I did a couple hours with a couple other instructors and stuff, but there was no rhyme or reason. I was just up there and like freaking out and all this kind of stuff. But I would say, in terms of quality hours that I would count in terms of under the hood, and as you asked the question, getting accustomed to flying by instruments only, I would say 10 hours. AB82. Yeah, here at Sierra Kilo Foxtrot Lakeland AFB, they don't let students solo out of here and hardly ever let any GA do any pattern work. It's in and out, no problem, and always require flight following. Okay, I got you. CL driver, definitely try a PAR approach. It's all about heading and altitude. Interesting. I'm gonna have to look that up. It's shared with the public runway class Delta. Okay, excellent. Aviation shorts. Yeah, I'm scared of those. It's too it's too light and underpowered. I don't know, man. I was in a 140 one time, and I remember putting that throttle to the firewall, and I'm like, okay, is something going to happen? But it was so docile, and that just, I don't know. There's something about that. Like I said, little Sammy will just always hold a special place in my heart. Um, Let me see. Aviation shorts. My friend had a rabbit. Yeah, I like those. Or has. Oh, he still has a rabbit? Wow. I didn't know those things were around anymore. TNY. I think instrument was the hardest check ride. You can do it for sure. Yeah, that I can only imagine. And sometimes I get, really stressed out when I think about the check ride and all of this kind of stuff. I'm feeling kind of good. And sorry, I keep grabbing my nose because my allergies are acting crazy. The ground school stuff, I'm good. But man, thinking about, you know, trying to do approaches, and and they send me to, course reversal, and man, what is it called? The DME arc? Oh my gosh, dude, that is the stuff of nightmares. I mean, I know you flying and turn, then flying and turn. I look at that all the time and I'm like, I don't understand how the heck people do DME arcs at all. Um, Let me see, Nathan, 10. That's sweet. Yeah, man, I'm making some progress for sure. Definitely making some progress. Edward, the rabbit with the four-cylinder diesel. Chef's kiss. That black smoke coming out the back of that little thing. Oh, that's crazy. He said he wanted a Volkswagen. I don't even Sirocco. I don't think I've never heard of that. Um, they make you do a DME arc, laughing. I don't know. I just, I hope not. And when I look at those things, I'm like, that looks evil. I mean, there's just nothing about that that's good. And one of the things I'm also stressing out is just like this whole partial panel thing, where people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess what they do is they disable your GPS or one of your screens or something, and you have to use, I guess, just your backup instruments. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what to expect, but that's the stuff of nightmares, because I've heard people say, okay, they'll fail your iPad and make you go partial panel, and I'm like, okay, well then we're gonna die. that's the result. We're gonna die. That's what's gonna happen. Truth Seeker, what's going on? Good to see you. Complete Freedom, what's going on to you? TNY, turn 10, twist 10. That makes my skin itch. It makes my skin itch. Turn, twist 10. Oh man, that thing is horrible. Um, let's see. Gary Fraser. I love when you talk about my favorite airports, and I've been to like Block Island, the Vineyard, Nantucket. Yeah. Gary Fraser, out of the three, tell me down in the comments, what was your favorite out of the three? Out of Block Island, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard. Just curious. Um, NM, oh man, I did get made fun of in school. Aviation shorts. What program did you do for ground school? Okay, good question. So for ground school, I started with Sporties because I'm a visual learner, and so I wanted to see what the videos would say in terms of instrumentation. Like I had a book, but I used Sporties. But then I used Pilot Institute, and they were amazing. I think the way they broke things down, I mean, it was just awesome. I didn't use this, but I would also look at Bold Method. Bold Method has done some great stuff, and I've been looking at some of their stuff for instruments. So take a look at that. Now, in terms of preparing for the actual written, Shepherd Air for the win all day. It is the most antiquated, crazy looking thing when you get it. They have to send you an email and you get a username and password and you open this thing up and you got to read these instructions. You're like, what the heck is this? But I don't know why or how it works, but it's some necromancy or something, and it just sticks. And I took I gave myself a month to study for the written because I scheduled it. I'm like, I'm taking this because I kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. So finally I got Shepherd Air and I said, okay, at the end of the month, I'm taking this exam, period. And I used Shepherd Air and I went through their entire program as they had it laid out, and I got a 90. And I got to tell you, when I would just try to study in the book and stuff like that, in terms of trying to understand what the question was and what they were trying to ask and what the answer was, this Shepherd Air thing really put it, it just sticks. Like, I don't know how to do a VOR test really because I'm still trying to figure out where to go and how to do it. But I do know on the ground it's 4 degrees, and I know in the air it's 6 degrees because of Shepherd Air. I mean, it just sticks. So definitely check out Shepherd Air once you want to start studying for the written. Let's see. Terrence, I did not. So you didn't do a DME arc on my check ride, mostly holes. I thought the DME arc would be so hard until we did it. Really interesting. Just remember twist 10, turn 10, and it makes sense. Twist 10, turn 10. So, but Terrence, what? So the thing that I'm trying to understand is like you twist 10 and then turn 10, but how do you know how long to fly? I guess 10. Is that it? Is it 10, 10, 10? Twist 10, turn 10, fly 10? Is that how it works? Anyway, it just seems like a nightmare to me. Um, but it's interesting. Uh Wandy, wow, I can't believe this is my first live video with you, brother. Keep up the good work. Enjoy your Sunday, guys. Yeah, what's going on, brother? It is so good to see you. This is definitely exciting. I was so glad you had an opportunity to join us. That's awesome. Gary, the vineyard for sure, especially when I can be there in 15 minutes. Well, you definitely can't beat that. And yeah, Martha's Vineyard, it's a magical place. It really is. I mean, it gets a little crowded, especially around Oak Bluffs, but the thing about Martha's Vineyard is when you're on that island, it basically infuses you with chill. You know, I remember my wife went on a carousel and was trying to grab these brass rings or something like, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this my grown adult wife on a carousel trying to grab some little brass ring? And she was like squealing like a little schoolgirl. It was crazy, but that's the island. I mean, Martha's Vineyards, but Block Island, dude, I'm just saying, Block Island is just, yeah, lights out, lights out. Uh, so let's see. Jimmy Doolin, what's going on? Partial panel was turn and bank ball airspeed in my day. Interesting. Interesting. So I guess you're just using the attitude, not the attitude, the turn coordinator. Um, and what else you saying? Airspeed. That's interesting. That's interesting. Thank you for that, brother Jimmy, and thank you for you know, brother Jimmy will send a comment, and his comments are like words of wisdom. Just so great. So thank you, brother Jimmy. The information that you always send in your comments is just absolutely amazing. East pin tail wheel. So you twist 10 towards the VOR or the indicator, turn 10 towards the VOR, then let the needle swing from one side of the indicator to the other, then repeat. Oh, okay. And then use the distance on GPS. Oh, okay. Okay, that's the part that I couldn't understand. Like, what am I using as an indicator to then turn and twist some more? But that makes sense. So you're waiting for a needle swing. Once the needle swings, what did you say here? Then you let the needle swing from one side of the indicator to the other, then repeat. And so I guess as you're twisting, and the needle will swing back, and then you turn and then let it swing. Interesting. Okay. Serious Black Flop, what's good? Good to see you. I'm glad you were able to make it for the live. That's awesome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Aviation Shorts. I flew into Block Island last weekend. Found out that they have a new beach. Did not know that. Don't know if I would necessarily participate in that, but that's interesting. I didn't know that. And actually, it's funny. Nobody said anything about that. Um, That's interesting. Well, for some of you, maybe that's another reason to go. Um, maybe you can use it as practicing ground for anybody who wants to be on that show, Naked and Afraid, or new dating and all that crazy stuff. So anyway, but I didn't know. I didn't know that, man. I'm not lying. I'm telling you. I saw a lot of stuff on the scooter and stuff, a lot of beautiful things, but didn't see that. That is hilarious. Thanks for the thanks for the heads up, man. Um, so anyway, everything is going well. One of the things I want to say to all of you is, I put up um that video about YouTube burnout, and I really wanted to tell you that as for me and this aviation journey on YouTube, it takes hours to edit videos. um and some of them do gangbusters, and some of them don't do well, but all of them are great, because it I get comments from all of you. You guys reach out and say things, and so that's why I can't burn out, because every week I'm so excited to hear these words of wisdom from brother Jimmy, or you know Alex reaching out to say something that I should hadn't thought about, or my brother Wandy, who will reach out and say something to me, or AB82, or any number of you who always reach out, brother Ed. It's amazing. And so this this is something I never imagined would happen, where I feel a sense of community with all of you. And I haven't met any of you except with the exception of Alex, right? But I feel, I feel like we're kindred spirits. I feel like there is this sense of community. I really feel like, I could reach out to, brother Terrence and say, okay, listen, man, I'm getting ready to do this check ride. I'm scared to death. Can you help me? Can you pray for me? Can you give me some little words of encouragement? And he would not hesitate one iota. And we've never met each other, and so that's why it's so amazing that I get to do this. And even this like live, you know, at the end of it, I feel like, man, all you did was talk to people. But no, there's people who are interacting, and and we're engaged in this conversation. And yeah, people see the video on the back end. This is so much fun. I can't fly. I mean, you know what I need to do right now? I need to go to the supermarket. Which do you think I'd rather do? Do this or go to the supermarket? And then I had to cook dinner and blah, 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 blah. So this is something I'd much rather do. So I will say to all of you, you all are my happy place. I am blessed with this community. You all are a blessing. And so don't worry about, me ever burning out. Yeah, there may be times where I need to take a break, but I look forward to this and I look forward to sharing. Um, and especially during this season of my instrument rating, because I want other folks who may be thinking about it or currently in it to see, you're going through the same thing, you're not alone, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so don't be concerned. I just wanted to talk about it because, I did want to encourage my other aviation YouTubers, specifically my brother Alex, to make sure that continues to be of good cheer. Continue on. He brings something special to the general aviation community in his YouTube page. And so I want to encourage him. And while encouraging him, I encourage myself. Let's see some other. Um, so Aviation Shorts rented a scooter too. Wasn't that awesome? I can't wait to do that again. I got to do that again. Matter of fact, I want to gonna see before the end of August. Maybe any of the folks are around. Maybe I'll just say, okay, let's set a date. I'll send out a message on YouTube or on Russ Can Fly on my Facebook page. If you haven't followed that, make sure you follow that. And I'll set a date and say, let's all converge on Block Island. Let's just do it and rent scooters and be and born to be wild. Aviation pilots on scooters kicking butt. Anyway, brother Jimmy, DME ARC use distance sent from the Taycan VOR with DME before GPS. Yeah, that's right. Um, Edward, we all appreciate your videos. We know the time it takes to edit, upload, etc. Yep, and it's definitely well worth it, brother Ed. AB82, it's okay. Sometimes you just need to take a break to collect yourself and regroup. True. I completely agree. And there are times where, I do take a break from certain things, in terms of, maybe not having the flight video because the flight video is going to take too long to, to upload and publish and all that kind of stuff. So I'll do something that's a little more low key where I'm just talking about stuff. One of the videos that's been requested, I'm going to try to shoot, and I got to figure out how to do this. But somebody asked me, and I thought it was an excellent question. I got to do this video. Was okay, Russ, you talked about how to rent an aircraft, but currently, how much does it cost to rent an aircraft? So I got to do some research there in terms of cost. And I'm telling you, the costs have increased significantly, and it's such a shame, because I see so many people for whom, this is going to be a financial difficulty, and I hate that, especially people who really want to do this aviation thing. I will say that at Wings Field, where I did my training, they no longer do leasebacks. It's all of this ATP accelerated flight school stuff. And I get it, but man, there's nothing like a good old fashioned Part 61 flight school. And they seem to be dying out, which is really scaring me because what that means is people are going to have to go into these $100,000 flight schools and fly these, fleet of aircraft, only in some instances not to be able to rent them post licensure, right? To build time. And so it's just, I'm really nervous in terms of what's happening in the Part 61 flight schools and access to lease back aircraft. So, many of flight schools, you can have a flight school and they have all of the brand new fleet and they do those, accelerated programs and all that kind of stuff. Many of those flight schools don't let you rent their aircraft. So you might go from zero to hero, in a year or whatever. But then what are you going to fly? And so in some flight schools where they have their own aircraft, you can rent them, and in some instances they have lease back. So I've actually even thought about not Charlie. Charlie's never going to be part of flight school. Not, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, I think Mr. Terry, the guy who sold me Charlie, would come and like put me in a headlock and and whoop my behind, and he would be right. But I thought about you know buying either a Cessna 172, or a Piper Cherokee 180 or 160, and putting a flight club around it just for the express purpose of being able to have an aircraft that can be rented to people who have their pilot's license and need to just fly and get experience in time. Because that's really a dying breed. But at Wings Field, they got rid of all of that and they went straight, you know, fly advanced wings, and it's, all that accelerated stuff and beautiful aircraft. That's great. But they also have a Cirrus program there. They have a Cirrus SR22 Turbo. I think it's a 2023 G6. It rents for almost $500 an hour. I mean, that's nuts to me. That's just now, of course, if you've got the money, I'm not going to fault you. But most mortals, mere mortals like me and others, that's just really, really too much. That breaks the bank. So I want to get into that and talk about that so much. I thought that was an excellent question. And then the other video that I want to do is, and I got to figure out how to do this as well. Somebody wants me to show how I do flight planning on ForeFlight. And so what I want to do is like be able to record my keystrokes on my iPad. And I keep trying to figure out how to do that. And I'd start and I stop and all that kind of stuff. But that's another video that I definitely want to make. Let's see. Aviation shorts. The haze out right now is crazy. It really is. And aviation shorts, I'm gonna tell you, it was like that coming back from Syracuse, and I got over those mountains around like Allentown area. Woo, it was hazy as all get out. Um, and I was glad I had some fledgling. That 10 hours under the hood definitely had a brother feeling a little bit more comfortable for sure. Um, Wandy, stay blessed, brother, and pray all the time. I surely will. Thank you so much, and thank you for praying for me, and I'll be praying for you. Um, Aviation Shorts, Russ, what's your Instagram? I'll reach out. It's Russ Kid is my Instagram. And you can also find me on Facebook, Russ Can Fly. Noah Leon. Russ, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing fine, Noah. Just doing my thing. Thanks for being here. Thanks for jumping on the live to say what's up. Um, NM. Oh, I gotta see this. K Daddy 55 down to one runway at my home airport for 5 months. Good for crosswind landing training, I guess. Yeah, no, definitely, definitely true. Gary Fraser, that sounds like a great idea, Russ. Have a fly in. Yeah, let's do that. I'll pick a date and we'll just see if it can work. I'll send it on out there. Block Island it is for this first one. Uh, Noah Leon, Russell, apologies from one of my comments which regarded Survivor. I was just interested in hearing your experience. That's why I commented about your time on the show. That's okay, Noah. I mean, that's part of something that's on the record. One of these days, I'm going to do a flight. And during that flight, I'd wax ineloquent about, what's going on. But one of the things I want to do is I never have talked about my experience on the television show Survivor, which I did twice. Um, and so that's going to be a flight that I'm going to take where I'm flying somewhere. And you'll see because I've been thinking about that, especially given the fact that Survivor is getting ready to have its 49th and 50th seasons this coming fall and spring. Yes, that show has been on for 25 years. crazy. And it was a crazy experience. So I'll definitely do a flight where I talk about that. You'll know when it's coming because I'm going to put on my buff, and I have a buff that I had the second time, and I'll even have a picture of me holding my second torch from the second season that I did. The first season, that torch is, I don't know where that is. I think it got auctioned off or whatever. But don't worry, brother Noah. That's part of my other part of my life experience that God, decided to bless me with. And so, I don't shy away from it. I definitely wanted, though, this aviation space and YouTube channel to be able to exist on its own prior to getting into conversations about Survivor and that kind of thing. Because one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of the folks who were on the show, they have YouTube channels and Instagrams and all that kind of stuff that deal specifically with Survivor. I wanted nothing to do with that. There's plenty of people who are doing that. I really just wanted to be about this love that found its way into my life called aviation. And so that's the only reason why I haven't mixed it too. I wanted that to be a different world, but it's definitely, interesting that that's something that is going to be a topic of one of the future videos. So all good. East Penn will 535 per hour on that Cirrus at Wings. 535. That's unconscionable. I mean, and I get that it's a great airplane. 535. So I don't know what the going rate is for instructors. I think in the Cirrus, I think it's $100 if I'm not mistaken. So you're talking about almost a $700 per hour, because I'm sure after you do the tax and all of that other kind of stuff, right? $700 per hour for flight instruction in that thing, and almost $550 an hour to rent it. That's nuts. That's nuts. That is nuts. That's not, to me, I'm sorry, that's not general aviation. The secret sauce of general aviation is regular folk of all different varieties, different income levels, being able to do this thing called aviation. That ain't it. And I don't know. I said what I said. Let's see. Aviation shorts. I'm going to start a YouTube and share my flying experience. Excellent. Make sure when you do that, let me know so I can make sure that people know that you're going to do that. I got you. Going to definitely help you promote it. Jimmy Doolan, I started a club with $4,500 Piper coat and a Gallup NM. Oh, okay. Definitely something that I've been thinking about. On my list of so many lists of to-dos. AB82, I love seeing him on the show. He always went beast mode on every challenge. Yeah, until it almost killed me, AB82. Let's see. Noah Leon. I'm talking to God, Lord, not Jeff. Yeah. Come on, dude. No way. Yeah, I was on there. It was interesting. Jay Styles. Where is Block Island? What is the airport identifier? Let's see. Maybe somebody can get it before me, but let's see. Let me see if I can't pull this up real quick. It's KBID, Kilo Bravo Indigo Delta. Definitely check it out, and it's awesome. East Penn Tailwind, 1,150 per. I can't. I just can't. 570 for half a day. I mean, it's just crazy. That's just crazy. Hey, Wandy, thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. So yeah, so you can see people are putting these, amounts in the comments are just crazy. That's R44 pricing, $650. Yeah, that's crazy. So that is pretty much it. Yeah, you're welcome, Jay. And we'll put this together. Maybe in sometime. Got to look at August to see what makes sense. But you know, East Penn, Taylor, are you thinking about becoming a CFI eventually? You know, that's an interesting question. I I wouldn't say it's not on the radar screen. But I'm putting no pressure on myself to do anything on this aviation journey. But I will say that I do think about what does life look like after retirement, and that would be a great retirement gig, right? And I love aviation. I think, and I would love to get people excited and teach and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's this is put this way. I am not saying no to anything as it relates to aviation, except for parachute jumping. I don't see any reason why one should jump out of a perfectly good working airplane. I want no parts of that. Now I'll fly the airplane if you want to jump out of that, but I'm not doing skydiving. So yeah, so I that's the only thing I know I wouldn't want to do is skydive. But as it relates to aviation things and things one can do, um, it's on the radar screen, so we'll see how it plays out. But it's an interesting question. I've gotten that question enough lately where it's definitely making me think about it for sure. Um, so let's see. Uh, Russ, how do you decide where you're going to fly? Um, so one of the things I will do is like not only do I make YouTube channels, I watch a lot of YouTube. And I've got a lot of favorite YouTube people that I watch, including um, Alex, and especially since it's up in the New England area, he does a lot of that kind of stuff. So a lot of times I will see him fly somewhere, and I'm like, that's really really cool. And so like Sky Acres, when I flew there the second time, I flew there again because Alex showed me that you could sign their wall, and so I did that. Um, I flew into Block Island because I can't remember who flew into there. I think it was Fly with Bruno. I think he flew into Block Island. I'm like, that place looked cool. Um, Montauk, I flew into because I flew over it, flying into Block Island one time, and I'm like, oh, look at that airport down there. I want to fly into that place one day because it's at the tip of like New York. Like that must be cool. So it's those types of things. Then some airports I pick just because it's got a nice restaurant on the field. Somebody's recommended the restaurant, that kind of thing. So it really depends. But those are the primary ways in which I get ideas to fly to which airports to fly to. Let's see. K Daddy, you'd make a great CFI. Thank you, man. Um, AB82. I'm living that time frame right now. Retirement. Yeah, definitely on the horizon for sure. Aviation shorts. Yes. Uh, short runway right. Yeah, no doubt. So I'm getting ready to wrap this up. You guys have been with me. It's been almost 90 minutes. And it's funny how fast this time goes. Every time I do a live, I'm like, Russ, keep it short. These people don't want to listen to you all this time. Russ, keep it short. These people don't. And then it's like a conversation. Like I said, this is the thing that I love about this is it's just community. And I feel like, I know you guys, Jay and Edward and AB82, all you folks. And so I definitely appreciate it. Um, let's see. AB82, I'm flying here too in a couple of hours to move a plane for maintenance. Okay, cool. Safe travels. Have a great flight. Yo, Russ, what's for Sunday dinner? I don't know. I've been thinking about salmon, but then tacos is kind of playing in my mind because it's quick and you can't go wrong with tacos, right? So tacos will probably be. Yeah, tacos it is. Um, Russ, flying the same day, and it's a great day. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, Daddy. Thanks, Russ. Have a great rest of the day. You do the same. Goodbye, guys. It's been late this side of the planet, 8:55 p.m. So if people don't know, yeah, Brother Wandy is, he's out there. You know what I mean? But he's always, willing to reach out, very giving, and I thank the good Lord that you're part of my community. Thank you so much for all that you've done for me and the channel and the support. Greatly appreciated. Um, TNYH, thoroughly enjoyed your live. If you ever want to fly together, reach out. We'll do. One Dog Geek, what's going on? Sorry I'm late. No, it was all good, man. It was all good. We did our thing. It's been fun. I've been thinking about you, brother, because getting closer to this instrument. And actually, there is a flight school. So you're in North Carolina, I think, in South Carolina, that I was thinking about doing some of my instrument training because they do some accelerated stuff. So you were definitely on my mind. So anyway, great live. They go as long as you need it. That's true. Yes, One Dog Leak IFR 6. I was looking at that. But I just don't have the money for that. I mean, so I'm going to stick to my plan, but I want to be done. I want to be done by the fall. I really do. I'm hoping I can get this done. And plus, my written exam expires in April, and I definitely want to be done by then because I do not want to take that exam again. So at any rate, good people, thank you so much. I appreciate you. um my accelerated instruction is easy IFR. Look them up. They're less expensive than IFR 6. One Dog Geek, before I go, where are they? Where is easy IFR? Are they down there in North Carolina or the Carolinas? Let me know. CJ, hi, join late. What's going on, man? Good. Better late than never. Let me see. I flew the Fisker Robin to Osh last week. Hand clap, man. Good. I mean, that's awesome. That is so awesome. That is so awesome. So, aviation source, yo, rush somebody. We should do a fly-in to your hangar and have a barbecue. Yeah. So next summer, I want to do a major fly-in to Doylestown Airport. I'm going to make that happen. I've actually let them know that I'd like that to happen so people can kind of see the airport. Um, and so anybody who's interested can come in, come hang out at Doylestown. And we've got a nice, you know, cookout area with benches and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, we're going to do that. But that'll be something that I'll put on the radar screen for next summer. So so easy IFR is in Natchez, Mississippi, but the chief instructor travels. That's interesting. One Dog Geek, I might reach out to you, because as I said at the beginning, me and Vanessa may have to switch up just because she's becoming more engaged in her own training. Excellent, instructor and all that kind of stuff, but she's had to cancel sometimes and stuff like that. So I'm looking at other options. So so I can, just kind of see what my options are. But right now I've enlisted, maybe switching to another instructor, but we'll see. But we'll definitely talk. I got your number. All right. So anyway, I am going to end this live. We are almost 90 minutes in. Thank you for all of the folks who have stayed with me the whole 90 minutes. I enjoy these. I'm thinking about maybe doing this at least maybe once a month just to catch up or whatever. And then give people maybe more like a weekly time as opposed to like the morning or day of or whatever. So that way people can attend. And then this is where or how I'll make my announcements, stuff like that. But stay tuned for the Block Island August jaunt. I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of like 3 weeks or so, all converging on Block Island, renting some scooters, being bad to the bone. All right. You guys take care. Ruben Simmons, thank you for being on part of the chat. Edward, One Dog Geek, all you folks have been amazing. So take care. Have an amazing, amazing Sunday and a phenomenal week coming, to come. All right. Take care and God bless. And I'll see you on the next one. All right. Bye bye.